These scammers were so catastrophically dumb, their crimes basically solved themselves. One guy ran a fake toll booth on a real highway for 2 weeks and only got caught because the actual toll worker showed up and found him already standing there in a matching vest. A fake psychic told her client she saw zero legal trouble ahead and got handcuffed before the session even ended, and a romance scammer caught genuine feelings mid-con, confessed everything in a 4 a.m. breakdown text, and still asked if the money was coming. These are 49 of the most brazen, brain cell bankrupt scammers ever caught, and every single one was buried by their own stupidity. Not the FBI, just themselves. Number 44 will genuinely rewire your brain. And if you haven't subscribed yet, every person on this list is in jail and still made a better decision than you right now. 1. Depositing a hand-drawn check written on a napkin seemed like the boldest financial move of the century. The bank teller stared at it longer than any human should stare at anything. The amount was written in pencil. The signature was a smiley face. Somehow it went through processing before bouncing back harder than a rubber ball. The part that truly broke everyone's brain was the reaction after. Furious phone calls flooded the bank, demanding answers about why the napkin check was rejected. The audacity alone deserved some kind of award. 2. Running a scam hotline felt like a genius move until the number got dialed by the very person who created it. While testing whether the line was actually working, the call connected, and the whole scheme got reported in full detail. Every single piece of incriminating information came straight from the source. The operator on the other end could not believe what was being heard. Notes were taken. A case was opened. The investigation that followed was the shortest in history because the evidence had already been delivered personally by the suspect. 3. A fake toll booth appeared on a public highway and nobody questioned it for 2 whole weeks. Drivers pulled up, handed over cash, and drove off without a second thought. The vest matched perfectly. The cones looked official enough. Everything ran smoothly until a real toll worker arrived for the morning shift and found someone already standing there collecting money with a smile. The confrontation that followed was deeply awkward for everyone involved. Getting caught was one thing, but getting caught because the real employee simply showed up for work made it so much worse. 4. Sending a phishing email to an entire cybersecurity conference mailing list required a special kind of confidence. Every single person on that list spent their professional life hunting down exactly this type of scam. The email landed in the inboxes of fraud analysts, ethical hackers, and digital security experts simultaneously. The replies started coming in within minutes, and none of them were friendly. Someone even replied with a detailed breakdown of every mistake made in the email itself. Finding the mailing list on a basic Google search was the detail that truly finished everyone off. 5. Selling sealed bags of fresh mountain air sounded like a quirky business idea until the location of the seller became public knowledge. The listing described crisp alpine breezes and pure, untouched atmosphere from elevated peaks. Customers were paying real money for this. Then someone looked up the address and found a basement apartment sitting below street level in the middle of New Jersey. The reviews started pouring in almost immediately. One buyer said the bag smelled like a parking garage. Another simply left 1 star and wrote the address in the comments section. 6. Running a fake charity for orphans took serious nerve, but registering it at a fast food location took something beyond explanation. Investigators traced the official charity address and pulled up on a Taco Bell. The paperwork was real. The stamps were real. The letterhead looked professional. But the registered representative of this organization was actively working the drive-through window when authorities arrived. The order being taken at that exact moment was a number 3 combo with no sour cream. Getting arrested between the speaker box and the pickup window, is genuinely a new category of humiliation. 7. Impersonating a government agency over the phone requires at minimum knowing the name of that agency correctly. The victim on the other end of the call politely corrected the mispronunciation once, then again, then a third time, with very clear and slow pronunciation. Notes were apparently being taken on the other end because a fourth attempt was made with full confidence. It was still wrong. At that point, the victim stopped correcting and simply started recording. The case that followed was straightforward because the evidence was just a phone call where the scammer sounded like a confused tourist reading a street sign. 8. Faking a kidnapping for ransom requires at least one basic step of using an unknown number to send the demand. The ransom note went out as a text message from a personal phone with the sender's full contact name still displayed at the top of the screen. The recipient was the closest family member saved in the contacts. The message was read within 30 seconds of being delivered. No panic followed, and no money was sent. The reply that came back was 4 words asking what time dinner would be ready. The family meeting that happened that evening was reportedly very uncomfortable from start to finish. 9. An online vintage clothing shop built a loyal customer base before everything collapsed over a price sticker. Orders were going out regularly and the packaging looked convincing. Buyers kept receiving random items that had nothing to do with what was ordered. When the complaints started piling up, someone looked more carefully at the items and found thrift store tags still attached to everything. Each tag read 99 cents in thick black marker. Charging between $40 and $90 per piece for items that cost less than $1 made the customer feedback section genuinely difficult to read without laughing. 10. Building an entire fake investment firm website required real effort, and the result looked almost professional. Investors were invited to a Zoom call to review the opportunity. Everything was going smoothly until the screen briefly showed the presenter's browser tabs. One tab was the investment firm website, and it was clearly a free Wix plan. The banner across the top of the homepage still had the placeholder text reading, "Your logo here," in large, gray letters. Not a single investor on that call said anything in the moment. They all just quietly left and called their lawyers immediately after. 11. Running a Ponzi scheme requires keeping secrets, and that starts with never mixing up the paperwork. 2 separate spreadsheets existed for this exact reason. One was the clean version full of made-up numbers designed to impress investors. The other was the real one showing exactly where every dollar actually went. During a formal sit-down meeting with a potential investor, the wrong spreadsheet slid across the table. The investor studied it quietly for a long moment before asking very specific questions. The answers given did not match a single figure on the page. The meeting ended early and the next visitor to arrive wore a badge. 12. Selling a rare vintage car for a premium price requires not having listed that same car online 7 days earlier for $800. The buyer did what every careful buyer does and searched the vehicle online before committing. The Facebook Marketplace listing appeared immediately with the same photos, same background, same scratch on the rear bumper, and a price that was a fraction of what was being asked now. The seller was contacted with a screenshot attached. The response that came back was a long paragraph explaining that prices change depending on who is asking. Nobody found that convincing. 13. Charging clients serious money to predict their futures requires at least some awareness of what is happening in the immediate present. The session was going well, and the reading was building toward a confident conclusion. The psychic leaned forward and announced with full certainty that absolutely no legal trouble was coming for this client whatsoever. The door opened approximately 90 seconds later. officers entered the room and the arrest was made while the client was still sitting in the chair processing the prediction. The client later said it was the most memorable reading ever received and requested a full refund on the way out. 14. Selling timeshare packages to a luxury vacation resort takes confidence, but the location of that resort was where everything fell apart. Glossy brochures showed swimming pools, palm trees, and private balconies with ocean views. Buyers signed contracts and paid deposits before anyone thought to check the actual address. The coordinates led directly to a residential property in Ohio with a plastic lawn chair near a small above-ground pool. The cousin who owned the backyard was apparently unaware the property had been sold to 14 different families as a vacation destination. The legal proceedings that followed involved several people who were very unhappy about their summer plans. 15. Cloning a bank website to steal customer information is already a shaky plan, but the execution here made it genuinely painful to look at. The fake site went live and phishing emails went out. Customers who clicked through landed on a page that looked almost right, except the bank name was spelled incorrectly in the web address. It was also spelled the same wrong way on every single button across the entire site. The login button said it, the contact page said it. Even the footer copyright notice had the same typo repeated. Security researchers who later reviewed the site said it was like watching someone fail a spelling test in slow motion. 16. Selling autographed sports memorabilia is a popular hustle, but knowing basic facts about the athlete being sold is a minimum requirement. A jersey was listed with a famous signature and priced accordingly. A buyer asked a simple question about the player's number on the jersey, and the answer given was completely incorrect. When that was pointed out, the response came back fast and confident, explaining that the jersey was signed before the athlete switched numbers. The buyer then pulled up a career statistics page, showing the player had worn that same number from the very first professional game to the very last. The seller logged off and never replied again. 17. Taking $15,000 up front to renovate a kitchen is a position of serious trust and responsibility. The money cleared, and the contractor disappeared for several days before any work began. A boat purchase was made. A launch party was organized. Photos went up on Facebook showing the celebration on the water with friends and drinks and sunshine. The homeowner who had paid for the kitchen renovation was tagged in one of those photos by a mutual friend who thought it looked fun. The comment section of that post turned into something that no boat party should ever experience on what was supposed to be a celebration. 18. Recruiting people into a pyramid scheme works best when the presentation does not openly describe the scheme as a pyramid scheme. The slideshow was prepared in advance and covered income projections, membership tiers, and lifestyle benefits across 14 slides. Slide 9 had a title that read clearly and without any shame why this is technically a pyramid scheme, but legal though. The presenter clicked past it quickly and kept talking, but 3 people in the room had already taken photos. One uploaded it before the presentation even finished. The comment section online reached 400 replies within an hour, and every single one of them was asking the same question. 19. Running a fake dog rescue operation depended entirely on nobody comparing notes with anyone else. The same dogs were being photographed, listed, adopted out, and quietly retrieved before the next family came along. Each animal completed the cycle at least 3 times. Everything was working smoothly until several adoptive families from the same suburb crossed paths in the pet supply aisle at PetSmart. One family recognized the dog another family was walking. Then a third family turned the corner with the same breed and the same markings. The group conversation that started in that aisle lasted 40 minutes and ended with a group phone call to animal welfare authorities. 20. Walking into a bank to rob it with a written note is already a high-risk decision, but stopping to handle unrelated financial business first was a remarkable choice. The note was ready, and the plan was in motion until the teller was asked to break a $100 bill before anything else happened. The teller took the 100, opened the drawer, and then simply never returned the change. The note eventually got passed across the counter, but by that point, the teller had already pressed the alert and was watching the clock. The would-be robber waited politely for the change that was never coming until officers arrived. 21. Pricing original paintings at $1,200 each requires those paintings to actually be original. The online shop looked credible, and the first few inquiries seemed promising. A buyer decided to do a quick reverse image search on the first listing before sending any money across. The search returned one result, and it was not a gallery or an art archive. The painting was the default desktop wallpaper that shipped on every Dell laptop sold in 2009. The seller was contacted with a screenshot of the search result attached. No response ever came, but the listings were quietly deleted within the same hour. 22. Operating a fake travel agency while personally enjoying the destinations being sold to clients was a bold lifestyle choice. Real flights were booked for customers using their own money, and everything appeared legitimate until cancellations hit during the pandemic. Refunds came back from the airlines, but none of those refunds reached the actual customers. Then the vacation photos started appearing online. Sunny beaches, rooftop restaurants, and poolside lounging filled the feed, while clients were still waiting on money they were owed. One customer recognized a hotel in the background of a photo and cross-referenced it with a destination from their own canceled itinerary. 23. Posing as a tech support agent while having no technical knowledge is a combination that cannot end well for anyone involved. The call started confidently enough with instructions being given to download remote access software onto the target's computer. The download completed and the connection was established, but then nothing happened for an unusually long time. A question came through the screen asking if the target could explain how to navigate the desktop remotely. The person being scammed was now providing live IT training to the scammer mid-session. Screenshots were taken throughout and submitted to cybercrime authorities, along with a detailed and slightly amused written report. 24. Crowdfunding, a school-building project in another continent, requires at minimum not spending the donations on garden equipment. The campaign raised thousands within days, and updates promised construction photos were coming soon. The photo that eventually arrived showed a trampoline sitting in a suburban backyard, surrounded by plastic fencing. The caption described it as the outdoor activity center for the children. Donors zoomed into the image and identified a recognizable neighborhood in the background. One donor recognized the street. Another recognized the house. A third had actually been to that backyard for a birthday party 2 summers earlier and still had the photos saved on the phone. 25. Starting a romance scam requires maintaining emotional distance from the target at all times, and that rule was broken completely. Weeks of scripted messages and fake affection somehow turned into something unexpected on the sender's end. At 4 in the morning, a long emotional message arrived confessing every detail of the scheme from the beginning. The fake identity was admitted. The scripted conversations were explained. Every manipulative tactic used was described in full with what appeared to be genuine regret. The message ended with a question asking whether the money could still be sent anyway. The target forwarded the entire conversation to the fraud department before sunrise. 26. Renting the same apartment to 6 different people simultaneously required confidence in complete chaos. 6 separate lease agreements were signed, and 6 sets of keys were cut from the same lock. Move-in day was scheduled for the same Saturday morning for every single tenant. Nobody showed up to manage the situation because the fake landlord had already left town. 6 confused families arrived with moving trucks within the same 2-hour window, and stood in the hallway together, piecing together what had happened. The Yelp review left afterward by the landlord praising the property management was discovered by one of the tenants and screenshotted immediately. 27. Listing a printer cartridge as a rare antique inkwell at a prestigious auction took creativity but not enough research. The item was photographed on velvet, given an elaborate backstory, and assigned an opening bid of $4,000. Serious collectors leaned in to examine the description as the bidding began. Someone in the third row turned the catalog photo sideways and looked more carefully at the object. The HP logo printed on the bottom was clearly visible even in the small image. The auctioneer was quietly informed mid-session. The lot was withdrawn before the hammer fell, and the seller left through the side exit without making eye contact. 28. Charging $500 per coaching session while handing every client the same laminated sheet requires a certain level of nerve. The sessions were booked out weeks in advance, and testimonials looked impressive online. Each client arrived expecting a tailored experience built around personal goals and individual circumstances. Every single one of them left holding the exact same document. The issue only surfaced when two clients from different sessions ran into each other and compared their personalized action plans side by side. Both sheets still had the placeholder text reading "Insert client name" here printed at the top in bold. Neither client had noticed until that moment. 29. Showing up to impersonate a building inspector while wearing flip-flops and carrying a clipboard with completely blank paper is a confidence level that deserves documentation. Homeowners opened their doors, and the inspection began immediately with violations being announced for things that were clearly not violations. $300 per issue was the going rate, and the list kept growing. Everything continued smoothly across several addresses until a real inspector arrived at one of the same properties for a legitimate follow-up visit. Both inspectors ended up at the front door simultaneously. The homeowner looked between the clipboard with blank paper and the official one and made a very quick phone call. 30. Selling invisibility cloaks on an online marketplace required a product description that was either genius or deeply insulting depending on how it was read. The listing explained that results would not be visible to the wearer under any circumstances. That sentence alone should have ended the sale immediately. Instead, orders came in. The seller then left multiple 5-star reviews from separate accounts describing the product as working perfectly and confirming the item could not be seen at all. One genuine buyer submitted a review asking where the cloak was because the box had arrived completely empty. The seller replied that the product was functioning exactly as described. 31. Promising 400% returns in 30 days while handing out glossy printed brochures suggested serious planning had gone into this operation. The charts and financial projections across every page genuinely impressed potential clients enough to move forward. Then the payment instructions arrived and destroyed everything that had been built. The request was to send funds through a personal Venmo account belonging to the sender directly. The memo field had already been filled in advance by the sender, and it read "Investment LOL" in plain lowercase. Several clients posted that screenshot publicly before sending a single dollar to anyone. 32. Running a fake talent agency for child actors while charging $800 registration fees required at minimum some variety in the materials being handed out. Parents arrived from across town expecting personalized audition scripts that would launch their children toward professional careers. Every family left holding the exact same printed page. The problem surfaced when parents began comparing documents in the parking lot immediately after their appointments. The unique personalized script given to every child was the complete lyrics to Happy Birthday reformatted to resemble a professional screenplay with full scene directions and character names printed throughout the document. 33. Building a reputation as an exotic pet adoption agency requires having access to more than a single animal throughout the entire operation. 47 families paid real money and completed full adoption paperwork to bring home a rare exotic iguana. Reviews were positive, and the listing photos looked convincing enough. Then a customer who worked at a large pet retail store recognized the animal immediately from the listing images. Every single adoption photo featured the same iguana, photographed repeatedly inside a Petco location across different visits. Store management confirmed the animal had never actually left the building during the entire period the agency had been operating. 34. Creating a fake law firm and mailing threatening settlement letters to strangers requires not printing a personal phone number at the bottom of official-looking legal correspondence. The letters described serious consequences in formal language across 2 full pages. Every call to the listed legal team number connected directly to a personal mobile registered under the sender's full name, which appeared instantly on a basic Google search with a profile photo attached. One recipient called the number, confirmed the name, searched it immediately, and forwarded the complete letter to the State Bar Association before the conversation had even properly finished. 35. Laundering money through a public marketplace that records every transaction and stores every shipping detail is a financial strategy that raises serious questions about the planning involved. The shop had been running for months, selling hand-painted decorative rocks through an account tied to a real name and address. Every payment left a clean digital timestamp, and every shipment created a traceable record. Investigators pulled the complete account history within a single hour and found documentation so thoroughly organized it practically assembled the case without assistance. Authorities later noted in official paperwork that the rocks themselves were genuinely well-made and received consistently strong customer reviews. 36. Charging $300 for a metabolism reset program implies the buyer will receive something substantial enough to justify opening their wallet that wide. The payment cleared, and the PDF arrived promptly. 5 pages appeared on screen, and the disappointment built steadily from the very first scroll. Pages 2 through 5 contained absolutely nothing. Page 1 had a single centered sentence with no further explanation, no supporting information, and no additional guidance of any kind attached. It said, "Drink water" in standard font. The buyer posted the complete PDF publicly, and the comment section reached over 800 responses before the end of the same day. 37. Charging $5,000 to make it rain for an entire town requires arriving during dry weather as a bare minimum condition for the performance. The self-described weather specialist pulled in with full equipment and confident energy ready to begin. Rain had already been falling since the previous evening, and locals were carrying umbrellas before breakfast. The ceremony proceeded anyway, and the full fee was collected without hesitation. Then the rain stopped 2 days later and questions started spreading through the community. A second invoice arrived charging double for extended services rendered, and authorities showed up before that payment could be collected. 38. Running a fake debt collection agency by demanding payment for completely invented debts worked consistently until one particular number got dialed by mistake. The script was polished, and the pressure tactics had been refined over weeks of successful calls. The person on the other end listened quietly through the entire rehearsed speech without a single interruption. When it finished, they identified themselves as a practicing debt collection attorney and immediately called back from the firm's official registered number. A formal letter arrived the following morning, and the case moved forward quickly because the fake collector had personally delivered most of the necessary evidence during that single recorded call. 39. Selling underground bunker blueprints for $400 each during a period of widespread public anxiety required the product to contain something beyond a title page. The PDF downloaded instantly and opened with genuine urgency from buyers expecting detailed construction guidance and safety specifications. 3 pages appeared in total. The first had a short, introductory paragraph. The second contained a black outlined rectangle with the word room typed in the center using standard font. The third page was completely empty. One buyer printed all 3 pages, had them framed professionally, and mounted them on the wall as a permanent reminder to check refund policies before purchasing anything online. 40. Impersonating a stranded NASA astronaut requesting an emergency wire transfer requires checking current news coverage before sending anything to potential targets. The email included specific mission references and emotional details designed to create urgency in every recipient. It reached inboxes on a Tuesday morning in 2023. That same morning, NASA had broadcast a live press conference featuring the exact astronaut named throughout the email, and thousands of viewers had watched it before the message even arrived. Several recipients replied directly with a link to the recording. One person attached a screenshot showing the astronaut standing at a podium, looking completely comfortable and well-rested. 41. Offering a guaranteed sports betting tip service while sending different predictions to different customers seemed like a foolproof way to always impress someone. The logic was simple enough that at least half the subscribers would receive a correct prediction every single week. Everything collapsed during one particular batch when the same wrong prediction went out to every subscriber simultaneously due to a sending error. The replies flooded in within hours, and every single one was expressing the same frustration. Customers began comparing notes in the comment section publicly, and the entire strategy became visible to everyone watching the conversation unfold. 42. Selling homemade organic soup at weekend farmers markets built a genuinely loyal customer base over several months of consistent trading. The branding looked wholesome, and the packaging described fresh ingredients sourced from local gardens. Everything ran smoothly until a printing error on a fresh batch of labels revealed something unfortunate underneath the new design. The word Campbell's was faintly but clearly visible beneath the organic branding, where the label adhesive had not fully covered the original printing. A customer held the jar toward the sunlight, and the original text became completely readable. 3 neighboring stall holders witnessed the discovery, and the market organizer was notified before the morning ended. 43. Running a fake moving company while charging full payment up front requires showing up with at minimum the correct equipment already secured and ready. The booking was confirmed, the payment cleared, and moving day arrived on schedule. The truck that pulled up had not finished being rented, and the paperwork was still being sorted out in the cab when the homeowners came outside. Then came the announcement that a back injury had occurred recently, which made lifting impossible for the foreseeable future. The homeowners who had paid for professional moving services spent the next 4 hours carrying their own furniture while the driver supervised from the driveway, offering occasional directions. 44. Impersonating a Nigerian prince in a desperate wire transfer email has been recognized worldwide for decades, yet this particular sender remained deeply committed to the format. The email landed in hundreds of inboxes on a regular Tuesday morning. One reply arrived faster than expected, and the sender opened it with excitement, expecting a confused victim ready to cooperate. The response was from a fraud investigation unit that had been running a honeypot account specifically designed to catch this exact type of email. The investigators' reply thanked the sender warmly for making their quarterly report so easy to complete ahead of schedule. 45. Selling exclusive memberships to a private rooftop club requires the rooftop club to exist in some recognizable form before collecting $200 from 60 separate people. The money came in steadily, and promise after promise was made about an opening date that kept moving forward. Then a TikTok appeared showing the founder standing on a residential rooftop, surrounded by a single lawn chair and some string lights describing the venue as almost ready for guests. The comments filled with excitement, and 3 additional people sent membership payments after watching the video. The original 60 members saw the post and collectively left reviews that were not positive. 46. Operating a fake funeral home prepayment program requires maintaining basic organizational records to avoid catastrophic scheduling conflicts between grieving families. The business ran for months collecting advance payments from people planning responsibly for the future. Then, 2 separate clients were accidentally assigned the exact same burial plot on the same date, and both families received identical confirmation paperwork. The error surfaced when both families received the same thank you card with the same handwritten message on the same afternoon. One family called to express confusion, and the person who answered the phone made the situation considerably worse by initially insisting both bookings were completely valid. 47. Building a fake car insurance company while issuing professionally printed policy cards to paying customers requires having some system in place for handling the inevitable moment a claim gets filed. Monthly premiums arrived consistently for nearly 2 years, and the cards looked legitimate enough to satisfy anyone checking at a routine traffic stop. Then a policyholder was involved in a minor fender bender and called the claims number printed on the card. The call connected and a very long pause followed before the response came through. The voice on the other end explained slowly that the company did not actually handle that particular part of the insurance process. 48. Charging nearly $1,000 to remove cursed and haunted objects from anxious homeowners created a surprisingly steady stream of business over several months. The service was presented seriously with formal documentation and a solemn removal process that impressed every client. Items were collected with great ceremony and transported away in a covered box. Within days, those same items appeared listed on Facebook Marketplace, described as slightly used with minor history, attached in the product description. A previous client was browsing the marketplace casually one evening and recognized a specific item that had been removed from the living room just 9 days earlier. 49. Impersonating Microsoft technical support while running scam software on a target's computer requires keeping personal browser activity completely hidden throughout the entire call. The screen sharing session began, and the support script was delivered with reasonable confidence. Then the wrong window was accidentally shared, and the target's screen filled with a browser tab that had been left open on the scammer's end. The tab title was fully visible across the top of the screen and read how to scam people Microsoft style in plain text. A long silence followed before the scammer asked the target if there were any questions about the technical issue being resolved. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when scammers forget that basic common sense exists. Every single one of these people looked at their plan and genuinely thought, yes, this is going to work beautifully. If this video made you question humanity just a little bit, smash that like button and subscribe to BrainFumble before your own logic goes missing. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next disaster. Now tell me in the comments which scammer do you think deserves a trophy for the most spectacular lack of brain cells?